What about Texas? How good are they, and how good is Arch Manning?
I don't know, and neither do they. That's the thing. Like, I'm not ready to call Sark, Kirby Smart, or Nick Saban. Prove it to me again. I see Arch throw a deep ball. I watch him run. He's going to be very difficult to tackle. But I go back to how much they struggled in the red zone in the second half of last season. It cost them a game or two.
Welcome into another edition of Crain & Company. Thank you, as usual, for making us a daily watch or listen. Without you, there is no us. And we're going to keep this preview series going of some of the biggest teams in college football with a team in the SEC that we have not previewed yet. We're really, really excited to talk about them. I know, people in the comments will make 8-4 jokes and this, that, and the other, but don't believe all that. And there's not a better guy in the world to talk about Texas A&M than Billy Liucci from TexAgs.
Yes, what's up, Billy?
What's up, guys? It's been too long, so
yeah.
I know we were talking before this. We're ready to reconvene in Atlanta, but it's good to be on always.
Definitely, and like we were talking about before you came out, I got to get one of those hats. David Cohn, former Michigan quarterback, my brother, former Western State, Colorado wide receiver. Billy, look, here's where I want to start, man. I'm a firm believer, and I think most people that played or coached feel the same way, that every year is different. And this new regime with Mike Elko, you're 1 year in. He's had a chance to kind of get his culture more put into Texas A&M, which is very different than not only Kevin Sumlin's, but I also think Jimbo Fisher's as well, because Mike gets every ounce of juice out of the squeeze as possible. When you look at this team, the way this team is constructed, right, and the experience they have coming back. We can talk about the offensive line and who they're bringing back, Marcel Reed and who they're bringing back. Mike Elko is going to put a good defense out there. How talented is this roster compared to some of the better rosters that we've seen from A&M over the years?
I've seen more talented teams at the top under Jimbo and Kevin Sumlin in terms of like star power at the top. And I'll go back to that in a second. But, I mean, in terms of, like, depth, Elko's been making the summer circuit, and I've talked to him a lot about this. And, last year the Aggies had 3 players invited to the NFL Combine. I think this year that number I'd put it over under something closer to, 10 to 12. Mm-hmm. In terms of draft picks, I think there's about 8 guys I absolutely will see get drafted. Maybe you could threaten double digits. So I think talent-wise, if you're talking about just we got NFL football players, we got grown men out there on the field. If you're Mike Elko saying that, I think that it's going to rate pretty high. Experience, it's going to be a very experienced football team. Mm-hmm. Like I said, you're going to have NFL guys at most positions. My question for A&M and their ceiling, I think, depends on 3 things, and I'm sure we'll tackle some of these throughout this conversation. But Marcel Reed's jump from year 1 as a starter to year 2, the pass rush, they're replacing that whole D line essentially, and then my final thing would be, who are the playmakers that you talk, like when you talk about talent? I think of A&M teams with Myles Garrett and Christian Kirk sitting near the top, and Josh Reynolds, who's still going strong in the NFL, that finish in that 8-4 range. I think about, some of those Jimbo teams and some of the guys they had up top, in terms of talent. And you don't get there to either of those levels coming out of this conference without elite game-changing playmakers. And my question, there's several guys on the Aggies that could be, but they're not there yet, and you wonder, will they be this year? Because that'll be the difference between, like you said, 8-4 and 10-2.
Yeah, without a doubt. You got to have the Jimmies and the Joes. But I do wonder, with Mike Elko being there now and you having the access that you have in that building, getting a feel for the temperature in that facility and with this team, you want to have all the talent, mixed talent with great coaching and get be as efficient as possible with maxing out the talent that you have. Do you feel like Mike Elko's culture in that building could maybe, even if you don't have all these breakout stars, having guys that are in the right damn gap, having guys that aren't out there doing their own thing, having guys that don't take stupid chances but know how to play aggressive? Because I think you can mitigate maybe a little bit of not the most talented team with the team that knows how to play the right way. And that's where I think Mike Elko is a really big advantage.
I totally agree with you. And you know that because you know him. But the football IQ of this group just isn't there.
Yeah.
And that's not because the players don't know. That's because of how they were coached and the culture of the group that was there before them.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a whole team of guys where you go, well, they just don't have high football IQ, you can try to recruit to that, but that's a culture. That's how you practice. That's how you teach. That's how your players are taught to learn. Mike Elko understands all those things and checks all those boxes. If there's a day that there's another coach here, they're not going to come in there and say that about the team they inherit.
Yeah.
But it's also why it might be a while before there's another guy, because I think that's why this place under this coach can win is he is meticulous. He is very hands-on about everything, whether it's NIL, portal. He's taken a more hands-on approach on the defense this year after how things went last season. He said, it's got to get back to kind of his standard, and that's why he has this job, is what the defenses were that he put on the field when he was here for 4 years, from 18 to 22. So, yeah, it's a cultural thing that you absolutely notice. I mean, when I watch them off season last year versus this year, it's night and day different. And last year, in year one, you bring in like 20 portal guys. Guys were coming in that kind of understood to competing at a different level.
Yeah.
And now that's the whole roster. Everyone's kind of caught on. And that was the reason for bringing in so many portal guys at first, is you've got to try to change a culture. And there's just a ton of buy-in across the board. And that's why you didn't see really anyone transfer in that spring portal window. Pretty much no one, if I'm not mistaken. And certainly in both portal windows, I think they lost one player that was truly noteworthy in terms of what kind of football team they would be this year. And that was Noah Thomas, who ended up over there by you guys in Athens. So that was a big loss, but that's literally, in my opinion, it. Yeah. The portal's been very good to A&M, both what was coming in and also a lack of guys leaving the program. And I think in today's college football, that's a great sign of culture.
For sure. I mean, Blaine, we talk about playing hard isn't just physical effort. It's your mental buy-in too, and being willing to learn the right way and play the right way between the years.
Yeah, let's go a little numbers here. Texas A&M slated to win 7.5 games.
That's the over-under.
Over-under for wins. Total's going off at -160 from betting odds to +130 for the under. They are plus 1,300 to win the SEC. And you all want to run through their schedule?
Yeah, run through the schedule real quick.
You have UTSA week 1. Good luck to them. You have Utah State at home at Notre Dame.
Here we go.
A little home and home there. Then you have Auburn at home, Mississippi State at home, Florida at home, at Arkansas, at LSU, at Missouri. Tough 3-game stretch. South Carolina at home, Samford at home. Then obviously you're at Texas to play the Fighting Arch Mannings. Not a terrible schedule, Billy, but not a great one either.
Yeah, I think it's a solid SEC schedule. And then you throw in a road trip to South Bend, it becomes a difficult schedule. But I've seen worse. Last year's was certainly easier, more manageable, I thought. You got Texas at home, you got LSU at home, and you got Notre Dame at home. But this year, it might be just as important when you look at that home road split. Yeah, Baton Rouge and Austin are going to be daunting, but you look at when you're trying to evaluate and you're trying to figure out how things are going to go in a season, right? You're trying to handicap the season. You look at those toss-up games, right? And you start going, okay, I think you look at the teams that A&M will be kind of evenly matched against. And I think of Auburn, I think of South Carolina, I think of Florida.
Mhm.
I think of Notre Dame. And they were matched pretty evenly with them last year, even though Notre Dame had a much better season. That game was tied with 2 minutes left here. And you think of LSU. I think those 5 games. And you get 3 of them at home. You lost 2 of those last year on the road. At night at South Carolina, walked into a buzzsaw, and at night at Auburn, where you lost in 4 overtimes and really had no business. I think they're going to be noticeably better this year, but I also think the schedule gets noticeably tougher. Like you said, I mean, that ain't easy. But I do think for A&M to get to that 9 win and then, enter November with a real look at maybe getting into that playoff and being one of these surprise teams out of the SEC, and more importantly, taking that noticeable step under Elko, I look at 3 games that just stand out to me, and it is right there, and it's Auburn, South Carolina, and Florida at Kyle Field.
Yeah.
I mean, to get to where you got to go, I'm like, man, that's got to look like a 3-0.
It's got to be.
Against Sellers and against Lagway coming home, to really get there. Look up and be 2-0 against Notre Dame and Auburn in September. If that's the case and we sit down and have a conversation, you guys, I'm going to have to talk y'all off, take the maroon Kool-Aid away from you.
I mean, you have to do that with Jake anyways before the season.
Yeah, Jake, you'll be like, you guys have had enough. Let me take that. Because if they were to win those 2 games, then you would look at the remaining schedule and try to get there to 10. And also you'd have a team that you're really impressed with in September. That conversation changes a lot. So I think to get to 9, you got to win those 3 at home. And I think to get, to get to 10 and be a playoff threat, a real playoff threat, I think you've got to go 2-0 early against 2 teams that I think are going to be pretty damn good.
Well, I mean, that Notre Dame game to me is the one that could ultimately be the decider, because if you do go on the road and beat Notre Dame, that obviously, makes that 10-win mark more achievable. But if Notre Dame does what we think they're going to do, or a lot of people think they're going to do this year, that 9-3 mark with a win on the road in South Bend at the end of the day, if the circumstances play out, could be what gets you into the college football.
Well, you and Billy both made mention of the 8-4 Texas A&M long-standing joke. Oh, here we go again this year, and that's what it was a year ago. 8-5 overall. But you're playing Texas, your in-state rival, the last game of the year for a chance to go to the SEC championship.
In year 1 under Elko.
In year 1, and if you win that game, not only do you make the college football playoff, you got to bye.
Yeah.
You're going to sit out the first week. So, Billy, I mean, 6 months from now when the college football playoff committee announces their selections, are the Aggies going to get called?
I'm not ready to go there yet. I think my season prediction is going to be sitting at 9-3, but like you guys said, if that 9 includes a win over Notre Dame or Texas, then what?
Yeah.
Because then it gets interesting. But I go back to this. You were talking about it just now. I think a lot of Aggie fans, because of the way the season ended, and it was a 1-4 skid to end it, they thought that was a bad first year under Mike Elko. And it's just not true. Mm-hmm. He won 2 top 10 games, and people go, whoa, Missouri and LSU weren't top 10. Listen, every single school around the country, every coach, every piece of propaganda, paraphernalia, every media guide, everything, coach's record, program record versus top 10 teams. It goes by where they were ranked when you played them. A first-year coach in the SEC beating 2 top 10 teams, taking the national finalist to the final 2 minutes in a tie game, and then winning 8 in year 1, 8-4 regular season. I'm just going to answer this real quick. The 16 coaches in this league, in their first year at the school they're at now, you know how many coaches had a better record in year 1 than 8-4?
Only what? DeBoer, right?
DeBoer at 9-3 when he inherited the world, and Brian Kelly, who went 9-3 and then ended up in the SEC title game. That's it. That's the list. I'm not saying go throw a parade for 8-4.
Yeah.
It hadn't been 8-4, first of all, in a couple of years. A&M, I think, finished 5-3 in the SEC. They're typically a 4-4 SEC team. there was a strong foundation built in year one under Mike Elko. And now the key for him and this team is to build on that. And that's going to mean winning some tough games and defending your home field.
Starting this podcast felt overwhelming. Scripts, setup, filming schedule, logos. We were trying to figure it all out. Well, and what we did find out is when you're launching something new, your to-do list is going to grow daily, threatening to take over your life, and finding a tool that both helps and simplifies can be a game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Make that noise, David.
Cha-ching!
Man, that sounded really good. Shopify powers millions of businesses worldwide and 10% of all US e-commerce. Shopify. They're behind everyone from big names like Gymshark to that new brand you may have just discovered. Starting out is simple. Just pick one of their hundreds of templates and customize it to match your style. No design skills needed. And creating content? Come on, man. That's where their AI really shines. You need product descriptions, you need catchy headlines, done. Want better product photos? They've got you covered. But the best part is how easy marketing becomes. You can reach your customers wherever they are, whether they're scrolling through social media, checking their email, and behind the scenes, Shopify handles everything else: inventory, shipping, returns, all those details you don't want to worry about. Because the truth is, if you're ready to sell something, Shopify is ready for you. So turn your big business idea into cha-ching with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Crain. That's shopify.com/CRAIN, shopify.com/Crain.
What about Texas? How good are they, and how good is Arch Manning?
I don't know, and neither do they.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like I could see Arch being really good. People think I'm like an Arch hater. Other people call me an Arch truther because I had him like 4th in the SEC quarterback ranking. So that kind of put me in the perfect spot to be both, I guess.
Yeah. Wonder who else did that.
Yeah.
I just don't know. Like, Texas lost a ton, and I will get killed for this because they lost a ton the year before. I get it. I'm not ready to call Sark, Kirby Smart, or Nick Saban. I'm not ready to call Texas Georgia or Alabama under Saban or Ryan Day. Prove it to me again. I'm not saying they can't, but I'm not saying to assume that they can lose everything they lost. And I talk to scouts daily that come through all these programs, and they kind of tell you where the levels are. And these same guys have told me, like, hey, Texas looks great. They're loaded. Or, man, A&M's going to have a hard time covering their receivers. I think that's going to be a real problem. You know, I don't think they're not going to have as talented guys on the field. And there are obvious exceptions. Simmons and Hill and Arch, and they've got a couple of great receivers. I mean, look, I get it. But compared to last season, I don't think that team will be as good. The question is, will they still it's not about them compared to last year's team. It's them compared to this year's top contenders.
Yes.
And you look at Ohio State and what they've lost. You look at, the lack of quarterbacks, whether it's Sayan, whether it's Stockton, whether it's, Ty Simpson. You look around at all these contenders and there's questions at QB. Yeah. I just wonder. I see Arch throw a deep ball. I watch him run. He's going to be very difficult to tackle. But I'm sitting there going, I think he's going to be really good. I do. And I think he's going to be a high draft pick. But I go back to how much they struggled in the red zone in the second half of last season. And it cost them a game or two. And it almost cost them letting A&M get right back into it if the Aggies could have converted a second, third, or 4th and 1. They really struggled in the red zone. I mean, I got crushed last year by the Longhorn faithful for saying Quinn Ewers is not a top 5 pick, not a first round pick, and I may have even been bought into maybe late first, but I was like, he's not a top 5 pick. He's not a Heisman finalist. You guys are getting too far ahead. I think Arch's upside is that. But we got to see more of it than him against Mississippi State and Louisiana Monroe. I'm sorry.
Well, I want to talk about your quarterback for a second, and Marcel Reed, because I don't think enough people are talking about him. And a point I made when we did our list of the top 10 SEC quarterbacks, and you can see on our channel, if you just scroll down, is that, a lot of people look at the way the year ended last year, They're like, oh, well, you brought up the 1-4 skid, and well, Marcel Reed made this mistake and he made that mistake. To me, he started out on such a high, and every new quarterback, especially a young guy, is going to go through the lows. I actually think he is more or as prepared as any, young guy that's now the starting quarterback going into year 2, because he's gone through that arc and has had to deal with all of that heading into this season. Plus, with Colin Klein as a play caller, not that they're the exact same prototype, but it's so much easier to call plays when the guy you're calling plays for has a similar skill set or ability to do multiple things as you did, which I think makes him prepared, makes him dangerous, and gives them a really, really good rapport. Where is Marcel Reed at right now in your eyes, heading into a huge year where he is the guy?
I think he's a lot further along from what I saw in spring and from what I've been hearing about in this summer. The question is not going to be answered, though, until they're on the field, of how much of a jump he takes.
Yeah.
He's going to be a better quarterback for all the reasons you mentioned, and he is a good study. He's a really intelligent kid. He's a leader. He's a winner, hard worker, all those things. So he's one of the real wild cards in the SEC to me, because he led them from 21-0 down, had a big game, and led the Aggies down the field for what should have been a game-winning late fourth quarter length of the field drive. And then in that bowl game against USC, he throws 2 picks. One of them bounced off Noah Thomas's helmet in the end zone for a touchdown that probably, ends the game. And it's 2 games down the stretch last season where he came off the sideline, took the huddle, and took his team down for what should have been a game-winning score. So, A, how much does the narrative change of what the SEC and national media are saying right now? But B, those things still did happen. So I do think when you're trying to figure out what's he got in him, he showed a lot more good than he did bad. And it's not even close. And I think what you're talking about, Jake, is pretty significant. It is that jump with that coordinator, that now they understand each other that much better. Because remember, Marcel wasn't ready to start last season to be the starting quarterback at A&M as a true second-year guy. Now, he had to get ready because he was forced for it to happen. And by the time he played a few games, he was ready.
Yeah.
But when the season started, he was not ready to be a starting quarterback. He got thrust into action sooner than he was ready for. So because of that came some growing pains. But damn, the good far outweighed the bad. But what you're talking about and what I'm talking about and what A&M's record is going to hinge on, in my opinion, is going to be how much of that year one to year 2 jump does he make.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to see it.
I can't wait either, man. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, Billy, you're the best,
right,
man.
guys.
Obviously, everybody can check out TexAgs. They're everywhere. Then David Nuno, everybody over there does an incredible job. Billy, thanks so much for joining us as usual, my friend. Cannot wait to see you in Atlanta and chop it up and maybe have
I'll bring the hat.
couple.
Yes.
Yes.
Hold you to that, Bill.
Yes, definitely want that hat. But thanks, brother. We
I'm still
appreciate it.
pissed at Cone. I'm still pissed at Cone for what Michigan did to us in the tournament.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
And then Buzz left.
More of that coming soon.
Yeah. We'll see. Dusty May all
Dusty
day,
May.
baby. Billy Liucci,
I like
TexAgs, one of the best in the business. We appreciate you guys as well. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Please keep sharing the show. And like the chances of me not being absolutely jacked to watch Texas A&M go into South Bend week 3, we're gone.